Jumping over to the C bracket now, we have Merrick versus Sean. Sean versus Merrick. Let's find out what happens. Okay, so we are bottom of the quarterfinals in the C bracket. So let's see the game. We've got Sean with black pieces, Merrick with the white pieces. Starts off with King's Pawn. Going into some well-trodden lines here. Very standard. 4 knights. Italian game. And d5. Right away, fighting for the center. It's defended twice, but attacked 3 times. So this looks like a bit of a sacrifice to get some activity. And looks like the idea is the black knight jumps to the side and attacks the pawn from the side, winning it back with 3 attackers now and 2 defenders. White castles, not trying to save the piece, mostly because there's nothing you can do about it. There's nowhere you can go to keep that pawn. Black's so confident in that fact, he's delaying capturing it and preparing castling, getting some good development for the bishop. White strikes back at the center, trying to fight for the dark squares in the center. In fact, almost the same move that black played a moment earlier. You have to wonder if after captures we're going to see a knight move to attack the pawn from the side. Now, this might not work out for one of the players since the queens also stare down the center of the board. Black says, I'm not going into that. Retreats the bishop to defend the pawn. And we have captures, and we realize at this point that you can't actually capture it because it's defended by the knight. So bishop goes back. This square was just vacated by the pawn, so it's safe for the bishop to be there again. But the problem is this forks the 2 pieces, and black's in a bit of trouble there. Gives up the piece, and queen recaptures, getting some development for the loss of the exchange, loss of the piece. White going for this square anyway, because there's now with the queen moving off of this home square, there's a potential fork on the board. So eyeing up that fork, black needs to see it and do something about it. Maybe waited too long to capture back on d5. Now with that knight missing, it's not going to be easy to recapture the piece. Queen moves back to defend the c7 pawn, but that walks into another tactic now. Rook e1 lines up the rook with the queen and the king, and neither the queen, like if the queen can't move out of the way, it's a pin. If the king tries to move, the rook captures the queen. At that point, it's kind of the best thing you do is just sacrifice the queen for the rook. White doesn't see the tactic. Instead, attacks the queen. The bishop's defended by the knight. It is kind of easy to block though, but this is the better idea, moving out of the way of the other tactic. Seeing that you made the mistake, you don't need to compound it by staying there longer. White advances the pawn, and it looks like this could be captured maybe. This square is attacked 3 times and defended twice, so I think you can just capture. Black doesn't capture. White kicks out the knight, and then this gives white the opportunity to capture the square with a pawn. And now this is going to be very difficult. The queens see each other for one, and with this really advanced pawn, only one square away from queening, you can't quite queen yet, but it's in a very annoying spot. Maybe even something like sticking the bishop there becomes really annoying, where the bishop and the pawn protect each other, and if you ever capture the bishop, the pawn queens. So that can be annoying. Even if black tries to trade off the queen, the rook comes in and now lines up with the bishop coming in. This could be really bad for black. Queen moves out of the way. Doesn't want to trade queens. This is a good advice when you're down material, not to trade your pieces off. White continuing the attack, attacking the bishop, trying to figure out where the bishop wants to go. Probably the bishop just wants to drop back and try and eye this pawn, get this pawn out of there as soon as possible. This mixed feelings about this move. For one, it hangs the bishop. For two, it frees up the queening square, but it does connect the rooks, and it is a developing move. So those are pluses. White takes the opportunity to capture the piece. Queen captures back, and now with this capture, the queen abandons the defense of the bishop. So once the queen captures the pawn, white's queen is able to capture the bishop. And now I'm getting nervous about all these pieces so close to queening here. But in capturing the bishop, white has also dropped the bishop. So that's not too bad for black. There's also this knight is now threatened because it just lost its defender. If you move it, then the pawn is threatened. So very active queen here on black side, doing a lot of damage. If you can prevent the queen from the white from queening here somehow, you might be doing all right. We have a rook coming to defend the knight. Maybe the knight doesn't want to move, doesn't want to give up the defense of this pawn. We can still push it out with a6 though. Then maybe coming to this square, hitting the queen, guarding the promotion square. Still lots going on here. Still kind of scary. Still very scary. Black says, get out of here. The problem is this can be captured by the pawn, and this might be a good time to trade it off. And that's what happens. You take with the pawn, it becomes a queen. Rook captures back, now bishop captures back. And now you can't capture this because queen captures is checkmate. The king has a weak back rank here, has no squares to go to. You kind of have to leave it. So instead, black captures the knight, but the problem is there's another square here for checkmate. So with this weak back rank, you really have to be careful. And that's what happens. We see that, and Merrick takes the first game. On to game 2. Now Sean with the white pieces plays d4, a favorite of mine, and plays the Queen's Gambit. Perhaps you've seen the show. This is the Queen's Gambit. The Gambit is you are giving away a piece. This pawn is not defended, and you can just take it. White is kind of happy to give it up to play a second pawn into the center, give up a side piece to get 2 pawns in the center, and have strong control over the center. Not like that, like this. This looks like this. Okay, that's the Queen's Gambit accepted. Instead, we see the Marshall defense, and this is a really interesting thing. Now, you kind of let white capture your pawn, capturing back with the knight, but then allowing yourself to be kicked out of the position again, sort of giving white what he wants with the central pawns, and black has to make a choice about where to fall back to. You can even like continue to harass the knight at this point, and it's it can be hard to find a safe spot to go to. White can get really quick active development, and black gets tossed around. So a hard opening to play. White doesn't punish black immediately for that, and just develops a piece, connecting the bishop to the pawn so that it can recapture uh, if it needs. But the thing I don't like about this move is it blocks in the bishop. The bishop would kind of like to be outside of this pawn chain, and now he's kind of stuck behind it. So that's a bit of not ideal. Black has some options here about how to defend. You don't want to move the queen, giving the dark bishop control of this diagonal, and you kind of don't want to give up your light bishop. You've got all your pawns on dark squares. Your light bishop is the best bishop. They call it the good bishop, and your dark bishop is the bad bishop because it's on the same color as all your pawns. So you don't want to give up your good bishop, which, after black plays e6, you can see the light squared bishop would be his bad bishop. So you're actually giving up your good bishop for black's bad bishop. You don't want to do that. Instead, you want to block with the knight. In fact, here, captures, you're fine with this. You just recapture with your queen, and you get some queen development. You're happy with that. Usually pinning yourself isn't a problem here, as long as black doesn't have a lot of active development coming in. Instead, we see queen moving. Sort of gives white this, or black, the light squared diagonal here. Black kind of developing some, what do you call it? Enabling some of his pieces. I like the early piece development. Black has done a really good job of getting the pieces out. 3 pieces developed versus white's 1. Queen sort of doesn't count. It's kind of close to the back, not on a great square. Could be kicked around again pretty easily. So black's actually doing really well here. I do like this move. And black's idea might be to come into this square. You might want to take its time to do another pawn move and kind of block black from coming into b4. A bit of a prophylactic move, preventing black from getting what they want. If black gets to this square, you have to move the queen again. Black's able to capture the bishop, and you lose your best piece, your best minor piece. White takes a chance to kick out the bishop, but you see it's already a bit too late. Priority levels, the queen's most important piece. The queen has to move first, and black may get their way. This is a risky play here, trying to check the king. It would work if the knight was not defended, but the bishop defends it, and maybe the problem here is that black can kind of lure white further away from the defense of this bishop by just throwing something in the way, I think. Black blocks and doesn't provide any immediate threat and gives white the time to go back to defend the piece. Instead chooses to attack a different piece. This can work. You do have to kind of calculate it to see if it works out in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't. Maybe black can capture this piece. Now you've got to decide between recapturing the bishop from the pawn or saving your other bishop. You can't do both at the same time, and likely black's going to be up a pawn there no matter what. So the counterattack can be risky business. And black counter attacks. This is quite the game. Wow. Um, Everything's hanging. We've got 2 bishops hanging. We've got 3 bishops hanging. The queen is hanging. I mean, it's white's move, so it's not. They're not all hanging, but um, I think white still has time to go back to d1, protect the bishop, and black is the one who's going to end up losing here because they can't save both of their bishops at the same time. A move like taking en passant here looks pretty tempting. It would eliminate this pawn. It would open up the queen to potentially a fork here. Although this queen kind of defends the rook, so maybe it's not that effective. It is a check. It doesn't work while the knight is on this square, so maybe that's not... Knight still defends it backwards, so maybe that's not a road you want to go down. It also removes your attack of this piece. Seems like the wrong idea. I think the best idea is to come back, defend your bishop, and keep attacking the other 2. Okay, so we see the immediate capture of the piece. I guess I missed this, and it seems even better. And the one thing that pushing this pawn did was disconnect the bishop from the defense of the knight, and is well played. Black's counterattack is not that effective if you can just grab the hanging knight. We missed that in our count of hanging pieces. Maybe you caught it at home. All right, and so black says crap, saves one of the bishops, and now I think you can still capture, and then capture this one. So you can't capture this way first because then you lose your bishop, and it's just a trade. So you have to capture this first, and after the pawn recaptures, you save that. And if this bishop moves out of the way, you just move yours back too. And you're still, either way, you're up with the bishop. We see white capturing the wrong bishop. Now black has the chance to do an equal trade. White's still up a piece though, so doing all right. F4. Got to look at what this weakens. This weakens the light squares here, and the knight is able to jump into both sides. So I don't like this move because it weakens these squares. It makes this knight better. Okay, we have another attack on the queen. Queen's getting pretty low on squares. I mean, fortunately, seems like a good square. You can't easily attack it from there. Maybe you can. White's queen may be getting trapped here. Queen can fall back, but then there's another way to attack it, and maybe it's just barely getting out alive here. Oops, that didn't happen. Tricky position. I think white needs to come back and try and get out of here as quick as possible. Going forward might be okay, but I was kind of afraid of this, taking away these squares. So maybe that's okay because you can capture this pawn. But it definitely seems risky. Maybe it works. You can't capture the second pawn because of the bishop, so the queen needs an escape square after that. May not work. Black doesn't try it, and white develops some of their pieces, getting more pieces into the game. Need to also develop this piece, need to castle, but you can't castle through check, and this bishop is quite annoying at this point. I'd try to trade off this bishop, maybe play knight e5 next, trying to get this bishop out of here. That's what happens, and I think black misses it, or goes for the counterattack again. Maybe the theme of this game is counterattacks, but like we saw, the counterattacks don't always work, especially if you can move your piece with a new threat, like I'm looking at knight a4 here. It comes with the threat of attacking the queen and rook with a fork. Um, Definitely moving that out of the way, creating a new threat, gives black two problems to deal with when they might have just been able to move the bishop. So amazing, white finds this, and black black comes in with a piece, maybe giving up the bishop, maybe not seeing it. Um, okay, this comes with an attack on the queen, so now the queen has to move and create a threat to keep the attack on the bishop going. Um, yeah, so we talked before about the queen running out of squares. Actually, all these squares are covered, and if we look at the spaces that the queen can go to, there is exactly one. And yeah, this is what I was worried about. The only available move is here, and now, maybe, well, that doesn't work, but maybe you have some ideas of trapping it. It's definitely far from home. There's a pawn here that wasn't defended. It falls finally, but the bishop falls. But I would be really careful that the queen isn't again getting trapped. This move may take away white's last free square. This might do it too. So let's count white's free squares. We don't have this. We can't go here. We can't take that because it's defended by the queen. We can't take that, defended by the queen. Can't take that, defended by the rook. We can't go here, defended by the pawn. Can't go here, defended by the pawn. We have this one. This is the only free move, and yeah, it's getting choppy. In fact, maybe just moving back work. No, because the bishop's gone now, and now the queen can get out. So close, but didn't quite work. But makes me sweat having my queen in enemy territory with not a lot of moves like that. King makes a left. Always got an escape square. No back rank mates. Knight comes in, looking for some tactics. Maybe put some pressure over here. Put some pressure over here. Not a bad square. Can be kicked out easily. Black chooses to. Maybe jumping in further was an option. Especially since it has this fork potential. Chances are black's going to see it, but it's still a nice square that you can't easily be kicked out of. White goes a little more passive. Sean's still winning this game. We have the knight move. Queen's got a free square, and a pawn advance. That is a tricky advance because what changes in the position when this goes here? I mean, yeah, sure, the square is defended by two pawns, but that move also opens up an attack on the knight. So you need to not get blinded by the attack over here, the sleight of hand, because there is the knife in the back coming from this other direction. And white either doesn't see it or chooses to counterattack, putting an attack on the rook. But this is not good because black can now capture it as a trade, and if you capture back, the other knight falls. Black misses the sneaky attack, and it sits on the board for a couple more turns. White misses it as well. It would have been better to save the knight, even though you can risk losing another pawn. And black finally sees it, captures the piece, and the game's a lot more even now. This is very intense. White gets right up into black's territory, threatening a rook. Maybe black needs to just connect the rooks and keep them safe. There's nothing else under threat at the moment. Bringing the queen back does that too, offering a queen trade. Probably not the best since Sean is still up 2 points, but Sean declines the exchange. Risky move, but yeah, it could prove out to be a good decision. Maybe a move like this gets out of the way and threatens a piece, try to accomplish more than one thing. And I don't like this move at all because this piece weakens all these other squares, and it's a lot of squares that are weak around your king. You kind of have no defense anymore over here, giving black the opportunity to capture, maybe even the opportunity to sacrifice the bishop just to get in. I would definitely consider taking that last pawn with the bishop so that the queen can take with check, and the king's lost all of his guards. Queen can come into block, but then, maybe, I don't know, I'd start looking for tactics already. Maybe, I don't see any, but I would just move out of the way and line myself up for something else. I don't know. Excellent capture, spotting the pawn that was undefended and weakening the last pawn. We see some of the reason that this pawn move was bad is just weakened the things around it. And now White's best move is to capture this last pawn with the bishop, which adds the defender to the rook. And I think that works. And he sees it. Excellent move. Rook comes over, offering a trade of rooks. Trying to, there is a principle here that makes sense. Black's low on time, has 35 seconds to try and figure this out. It's not a lot of time. When your opponent's attacking like this, offering a trade of pieces, trading off their attacking pieces blunts the attack. So it's good in principle. White doesn't just take the piece, instead brings another rook over to aid in the attack. Now if black wants to take, white just recaptures and keeps the attack going. Black connecting the rooks now. Maybe there's some tactics. I mean, this doesn't quite do anything because of the queen trade, I think, but maybe there's something here. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I want the queen onto a light square so I can check the king from the side. Not sure what the plan was there. This I don't like so much because it offers trading the queens, and that queen was your strongest attacking piece. Oh, but there could be an idea behind it. Bringing the rook over, forking you don't need to do that. You just recapture. What am I saying? So you just recapture. There's no need to fork and lose more material. But the trade is still good. Sean's still up the points. And now he just needs to get his rook to a square where the bishop or a pawn can defend it and get out of that potential attack here. If Merrick can get the king and rook attacking this bishop before the rook gets to safety, he can win it. Of course, the check probably works too. Oh, I don't like this so much because now he can connect them and threaten to win it. And I guess your only option is to go back. Problem is you got 4 seconds to figure this out. This loses the bishop now, and wow, okay, let's go back here. Okay, both players in time trouble here. Black with 3 seconds on the clock, white with 20 seconds on the clock, checks the rook. Maybe, black needed to go to the side to keep the rook defended, but missed it, and white can capture the rook now and win the game, but misses it, maybe not wanting the trade, brings it back to an undefended square. Now black can capture the rook and win the game, but didn't get the chance. Ran out of time, and Sean wins. So that ties it up for us, brings us to game 3, the playoff game. 3 minutes on the clock for both sides. Merrick with the white pieces. This is going to go fast. We got king's pawns. Yeah, this line you saw was a threat line. There's a threat of capturing this piece. Black defends it. White. We got back to the 4 knights game. Okay, it went well for Merrick in the first round, so maybe going back to it, they play a slightly different line now. Bishop's out, castle, and playing d4, and you see all the threats there. These are the threats if black does nothing. So black needs to respond to it, and probably the best move is capturing that pawn. You've got three pieces that can capture it. White's only got 2 defenders. That pawn needs to go down. Ignoring it gives white a chance to capture the bishop, which happens. And part of the problem, I think, is that he spent less than a second on that move. You've got to be, you're very nervous about the time control. You get an extra 2 seconds per move, but it's not a lot. They're playing lightning fast, trying to keep on top of the time, and it's super easy to miss things like that. Now, the queens come off the board in a trade. Bishop comes out. White's finished their development ahead of black. Black finishes development a second later. Still kind of anyone's game, although white is up a piece. Knight moves out of the way. There's a chance to grab this pawn. Black comes to the second rank, kind of like the 7th, trying to get at the pawns in the back row, but the square is defended, misses that. Bishop easily captures it. Rook comes out threatening the bishop. Bishop moves back, and now this bishop jumps in trying to threaten 2 pieces, but it's white's turn, and white captures the piece. So black seems to be dropping some pieces now in time pressure, really feeling the time pressure and not having time to double check the moves. Black captures a hanging pawn. White offers a trade of rooks, and black moves the only piece defending the rook, hanging mate in 1. White needs to play captures to win the game, and sees it, captures, and wins the round. Amazing. So that was intense. That was really intense. So what do we got here? Let's put in the points. We've got first we had a win for Merrick, then we had a win for Sean, and then we had a win in overtime for Merrick. And that means Merrick will be moving on. Tough game. Impressive play. See you on the next one.